All right, so let's discuss the reports for end of year one. So this is a legend. For those of you who are new, every reporting and certification training, Kyron tries to include a legend for us and tells us how the reports are related to each other. So end of year one is the second smallest data collection for end of year. In terms of reports, it's probably the smallest, but I would think that end of year two is the smallest because it requires basically the submission of the program file and that's it. But for end of year one, you can see that there's only 4 aggregate reports. And the significance of the aggregate reports indicated by the reddish orange color, this is your product. At the end of all this reporting, these are the counts that the state and the federal government use for accountability. And so we can use at the very top, report 3.9, course sections completed, count by content area and departmentalized courses. So basically it's telling us how many course sections were completed, and the report breaks it down by the content area, which is the state course code, and then departmentalized courses, which excludes 1,000. So that's what the title is telling you. However, you're just going to get numbers, right? That's all the count is. 1,000, 54, 27, whatever it is. How do you make sense? How do you identify if these counts are accurate? Well, then you have course sections completed. That's report 3.10. You can drill down and look at the course sections completed count and details for departmentalized courses. So the details for those courses reported, that include the course section IDs, the teacher. It's greater detail, so you can identify, oh, this is that course. I have 5 courses taught at my high school with Algebra 1. I can see those individual sections. Okay, I get a better sense for that. To verify the students that are completed or were reported for completing those courses, you would drill down further to report 3.11, course sections completed student list for departmentalized courses. And that's going to be a record on each, for the report will show every student's course completion record for the courses on 3.10. So imagine how much more detail that report has. If you have secondary students, they have 4, 5, 6 courses, 7 courses a semester. So it's a longer report, takes longer to render. And then of those courses, how many of those courses were education options courses like AVID or independent study, right? That's report 3.16. That also will drill down into 3.11. So it kind of shows you the relationships, this legend. So we have report 3.9, that's an aggregate report, course sections completed, count by content area and departmentalized courses. So you have your content area in column 3 and your state course code, which represents the content. And you can see that they're listed, and these departmentalized means we're going to exclude state course code 1,000. And then the number of sections offered, that's column 8. And then how many males and how many females were in the courses, how many students identify as non-binary in those courses, and then the total. So this gives you, the official counts, but not great detail. It doesn't really paint the picture. So that's why you have to review 3.10, course sections completed count and details for departmentalized courses. So you have all the exact same information, but you have more data fields. You have details about the course. So you have the local course ID and the name. If it's aligned to current standards, yes or no. If it's a CTE course, is it high quality? Just the different details that are in the course data submission. So on and so forth here. So you see education options. There's an individual report for these 5 or 6 courses here, but it will say yes or no if it's an education options course. And then these counts should mirror what was in 3.9. It just allows you greater detail. But still, how do I know who these students are in the students completing course section? That's why we have, we'll come back to that slide, report 3.11, course sections completed student list. Anytime you see student list, it's going to be a detailed report. You're going to have the student's name, SSID, their demographics, and then you're going to see at the very end of the report, 20 through 25 are those fields that came from the student course completion file. We kind of demonstrated where you have credits earned, Carnegie units, whether or not it meets A through G requirements, their grade. Then you have course detail in the middle. This comes from the course, with the teacher who's teaching the course, their name, their seed. You have the course section ID and the course name. And so you could kind of map the student's enrollment to those individual courses. So that's 3.11 provides you the greatest level of detail for the student, 3.10 for those specific course sections. Now, when you're reviewing CTE data and you're looking for participants, remember, any student that is not a completer is a participant. To see the courses that they took that counted them as a participant, you're going to have to know how to use the filters. So first, you want to filter for a CTE course. If you filter yes before you run your report, you're going to get a list of just those CTE state course codes. Then if you want to identify if those CTE state course codes also provided college credit, or for the CCI, you want to indicate non-standard instruction level 23 and 24. And then you would run your report, and you would have the state course code, which is your CTE courses, the non-standard instructional level, and then I think this would be CTE state course code provider. It's not expanded, so you can't see the full title, but you would see the details about the CTE courses. So those are dedicated to course completion, the courses that were provided from the LEA, and how the students completed those courses, their grades, their end result, right? So moving into the CTE reports for Carl Perkins, you have report 3.14, career technical education non-completer participants. These are those students that are not completers. They didn't have a CTE record. They were enrolled in a CTE course. And it's important to understand, by default, only high quality CTE courses show up. So Kyron caught me a surprise last time we did this training, but typically LEAs will run this report and have low counts or no counts. And they know they'll go back and review. They can see where they submitted their courses, CTE courses were included. They look at their student course completion files, and they see that they submitted students enrolled in those CTE courses. They gave them grades. Is this report broken? What's wrong? Why do I have no data? So there's a filter. You want to make sure that you filter for grade level. So if you're submitting CTE data for 7th and 8th graders, you make sure they're indicated. But the most important filter is this Perkins CTIG fundable filter. It's by default going to be set at yes. That means you've indicated your courses as high quality CTE courses. If you have not indicated this filter by mistake, or you don't have high quality CTE courses, you're going to have to toggle this filter to all. And that's perfectly fine. Not every CTE course has to be high quality. For the dashboard, any CTE completer, whether it's high quality or not, is going to be included. Perkins wants to know whether or not it's a high quality CTE course. And not every course is taught by a CTE certified teacher. So, just you want to know how to use the report to identify the data. So first things first, whether you made a mistake or it was deliberate, if you don't have results on 3.14 that you expect, check that Perkins CTIG filter and see if you change it to all, how that report runs, see if your counts are a little bit more accurate. And then you can identify whether or not you need to resubmit those courses as high quality or not. So you have core indicators for Carl Perkins that show up on the reports, and you identify in student characteristics. So those students with disabilities are identified, students that are identified as economically disadvantaged, and this is a little bit different from socioeconomically disadvantaged, primarily because when you say socioeconomically disadvantaged, we're thinking about the parents' education in addition to these other factors, being free and reduced meal eligibility, migrant program, homeless program, whether or not they're AR foster student or they are automatic direct certification. Those are the indicators for CTE, in which you notice is the exclusion of parent ed level. Then we have single parents, right? And those are students that are parenting or pregnant. So it could be male or female, students that are parenting. and certainly those pregnant students. You just see the title single parents, and you might try to associate it with if the child is being raised by a single parent, and that's not the case. We want to know if the student is a single parent or an expecting parent. And then non-traditional gender, if you look up the CTE on the web portal, there's a link to the federal government site for Carl Perkins, and that's where the non-traditional gender comes. It's not state identified, it's not LEA identified. The fields of CTE have traditional genders identified. And so if a student is in one where it's significantly dominated by one or the other, that student information demographics will indicate the gender, and it will identify whether or not they're in a field that's associated with a different gender. So report 3.15 career technical education, non-completer participants. It's a long name because there was confusion. It's the same report, but it's just a new name. And we're specifically identifying participants who were not completers. So if you didn't submit a SCTE record for the student and they were in a CTE course, they're going to be listed. If they were in a CTE course, but you said they were a completer by submitting an SCTE record, they're not going to be listed. That's just the nuance of this report. Everything else is pretty much straightforward. 3.16 education options, course completion, student count. We talked about those courses that are education options courses. So of course, independent study, in the course section, you will indicate yes or no if the course is independent study. There is not a state course code. So that's, in the course section, that is indicated by a field. Distance learning, again, just like independent study, is it distance learning? A course can be both, right? It can be both. Courses that are California Partnership Academy, that's a field in the course file as well, whether or not that is a CAP course. And then AVID courses, that has a state course code specific to AVID. And then international baccalaureate courses, right? IB courses. So you could identify that by state course code, and there's the cross reference, right? So these are those education option courses. Then you have your CTE completers by pathway. These are only going to count those students that have an SCTE record. That's how you identify if they are completer. The pathway comes from the course, the capstone course record. To be a completer, you need not only a SCTE record, the pathway does come from the CTE file, but it has to match the capstone course. Otherwise, you'll trigger an error. Cert 123, I think it is. Kyron demonstrated it because it's probably the most common error that you're going to see. Well, as far as cert error in any of year one. And so you want to make sure that you map your capstone course. First, report a student as having a capstone course and make sure that capstone course is in the appropriate pathway and matches your SCTE file. And then 3.20 is your student list for your CTE completers. Significant demographic information included on the course, including the SCTE data and some course data telling you what was the capstone course and the pathway. And then 18.1 work-based learning is just a count of the students in each of those individual work-based learning programs. And then the student list provides the, SSID, the student's name, some demographic criteria like race, gender, grade, and then again, the matching data from report 18.1, what work-based learning type program they're in. Student may have more than one record here. A student may have had an internship for half the year and was a student-led enterprise for another half of the year. However, it works out, but a student, it's not exclusive to one record.